Well, the heat wave continues across California, bringing some 25 to 35 degree above average temperatures. We've broken a couple of records yesterday. I expect we're going to continue to break some temperature records today. And as you can see, basically all of California is covered in that excessive heat warning, and actually much of the Southwest as well. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the temperatures that you're going to be getting over the next few days. We'll take a look at some of the precautions you can take, and we're also going to look at some good and bad news in the extended forecast ahead. So just looking at this map, you can see almost all of California in that excessive heat warning. The one place where we do have some relief is up here in the very northeastern parts of the state, in the Sierras, or along the coast. You just get into that heat advisory where you're able to get some of that moderating effects from the ocean. But overall, dangerous heat wave over the entire state. And I usually don't like to say words like dangerous, but yesterday, these were the observations. You can see majority of Sacramento, San Joaquin Valley up into the triple digits. Parts of the desert were actually up above 115, even hit 120 in some places. So that was dangerous heat yesterday. And unfortunately, in many of these same locations, we're actually going to be even warmer today. So throughout this forecast, keep in mind that there's almost two different forecasts going on. There's one forecast for the bays and the coasts, and then there's another forecast for the valleys, because the bays and the coast throughout the day today are actually going to be getting a little bit more wind that's going to keep them cooler than yesterday, while many of those areas that had the extreme heat yesterday, that's actually going to get even stronger throughout the day today. So what is causing all this heat in the first place? It's this large high pressure system that is basically over the entire Southwest. You can see why that excessive heat warning is as large as it is. It's because this high pressure system has just been sitting over the entire Southwest for maybe 2 or 3 days, and unfortunately, clicking all the way into Saturday, into Sunday, it looks like that high pressure system isn't really going anywhere. Now, with that being said, there are going to be some little factors we'll be looking at that will be causing some cooling over the next few days, but for the most part, that high pressure system is here to stay throughout this weekend. So my favorite map to look at when trying to determine how hot it is looking at the temperature anomalies. It's basically saying what your temperature should be today and then what it actually is. So you can see yesterday, especially in the Sacramento Valley, we had temperatures 25 to 30 degrees above average. And then if we look at today, you can see that's actually getting even larger and spreading down into the San Joaquin Valley as well, with basically the entire Central Valley of California 25 to 35 degrees above average temperatures. Now you can see in some of those bay areas like Monterey Bay or right over San Francisco, that's where we're getting some relief with those onshore winds coming in this afternoon. But as you can see, the story here is pretty clear, well above average temperatures. That's why we have that excessive heat warning in place. That's certainly not normal to be getting 35 degree above average temperatures in the middle of June, hence why we're breaking so many records right now. Just yesterday, we broke temperature records, daily temperature records in places like Death Valley, Las Vegas, Gilroy, Ben Lomond, a number of other places as well, like Hollister. I'm sure if I looked at all the different cities that broke records, it would be a long list. So I'll just leave it at that for now. But let's look at the future. So you saw today is going to be even hotter than yesterday, especially in the valley. And it looks like Saturday, it's still going to be hot. We're still 25 to 30 degrees above average, but at least it looks like it's coming down a little bit. We'll take whatever we can get at that point. The trend continues into Sunday, where we're still above average, but now it's just maybe 20 to 25 degrees above average. And then eventually, as we get far into next week, we start to get some cooling. We'll look more at that at the end of the video. But first, I want to really dive into the temperatures that we're going to be getting throughout Northern California and Southern California throughout the day today. This is what it looked like yesterday. Keep your eye on some of the major cities that are highly populated, places like Chico. Yesterday, you were 108, Sacramento 109, Stockton 108. If we look at your high temperatures for today, you can see many of these places are actually going to be even warmer than yesterday. We're expecting 111 in Redding, 113 in Chico, 111 in Sacramento, 109 in Stockton. Now, I will point out San Francisco actually cooler today than it was yesterday, and again, that's because those onshore winds that are going to be pushing in some of that cooler ocean air. But as you can see, almost the entire Sacramento Valley looks like it's above 110 degrees, and some places even getting into the 110s. Not really even sure if that's a word, but we'll use it. So let's look at Saturday. Looks like we're a little bit cooler on Saturday. Again, it's hard to get excited about cooling just down to 109 in Chico or 102 in Sacramento, but it's at least better than what we're getting today, above 110 degrees. So some cooling coming in tomorrow. The heat wave does continue. That excessive heat warning that we see in place throughout Sacramento Valley, that will continue into Saturday evening now. They extended that from what we were looking at yesterday, as this heat does look like it's continuing into Saturday. Looking at Sunday, once again, still hot. Sacramento 99, Chico 107, but at least we're moving in the right direction. We're at least not getting any hotter than what we're supposed to be getting today. So just a summary, today the hottest day of the year so far, and I believe of this heat wave that we're going to be getting. We'll just take one last look at those high temperatures throughout the day. Today, again, places like Chico, Yuba City, Sacramento, and Stockton, and Merced, that's where you're going to want to stay in some shade. You have all the different precautions you can take right here. Drink plenty of water. Avoid outdoor strenuous activities. Try to stay in some AC. I'm sure everybody who lives in these areas has AC. I think it would be rather difficult to live in these places without it, but be sure to just drink lots of water, avoid outdoor activity. And I also wanted to show this map right here because I know it can be kind of confusing sometimes how there's heat advisories, excessive heat warnings. So this map right here just color coats the risk. Where you have that magenta color, that's very high risk, and that's where the entire population is at risk with this heat. Now where you have the orangish or the yellow color, that's where it's just the sensitive groups that will be especially susceptible to the extreme heat today. But this is basically a good summary that you see right here. Heat like this is certainly rare. That's why we've been breaking records the last couple of days, why we'll continue to break some records today. And I usually don't do forecasts on Saturday mornings, but I might have to tomorrow just so we can go over any records that broke today. So stay tuned for that. And it'll also be important to stay tuned with this heat wave because it seems like it actually got a little bit worse than we were expecting yesterday, especially for your afternoon highs today. But overall, extreme heat, as you can see right there, there's going to be little overnight relief. That's actually one of the important parts of a heat wave. In some of our areas like the foothills, we're only going to be going down into the mid 70s to even low 80s in the overnight hours. So you're not going to get all that great relief that is needed when it's been 115 degrees throughout the day. So this is just the snapshot of the Bay Area. You can see where that heat advisory is in effect. Yesterday, we were expecting that excessive heat warning to push back out of southern parts of Monterey Bay, push away from the North Bay as well, but it looks like the National Weather Service has kept those excessive heat warnings in place, so we will have to stay tuned to some of the high temperatures in the North Bay and southern Monterey County as well. So you can see where that heat advisory is, places like Santa Cruz Mountains, but majority of the area is covered in that excessive heat warning throughout the Bay Area. Good news is, as that onshore wind picks up, we should start to get some relief there. Now, there is also some good news, if you can call it good news when a heat wave like this is going on in Southern California. We do have that marine layer sitting right over the coast right there. You can turn this on so we can actually see some of these clouds moving. Looks like we have some high clouds, actually caused some lightning yesterday. I'll have to check on if any of the fires that started have grown rapidly. But the good news is we haven't had all that extreme winds with this system. So while the heat and the dry air makes it likely for fires to start, without the extreme winds, it's hard for one of those fires to really blow up like some of the fires we've seen in the past. So good news for Southern California, you do have that marine layer. It looks like it's trying to creep up the coast. I'm hoping that it can get into Monterey Bay. It's wishful thinking. I think we'll actually start to get the marine layer in places like Monterey Bay farther into Saturday evening and Sunday morning, but we'll have to stay tuned on that. Like I said, looks like Southern California already has it, so what that's doing is keeping your coastal cities cooler than they otherwise would be. You can see Oxnard, 70 degrees, LA, should be actually sunny and beautiful in LA today, 83 degrees, Oceanside 67, San Diego 67. So you can actually see the effect that that marine layer has on your coastal cities. Now, that's kind of the good news for the Southern California forecast. The bad news is some of these high temperatures that we're going to be getting throughout the day today. You can see Fresno 102, Bakersfield 102. Farther into the desert, yesterday we were as high as 115 and 120, expecting to see some of those high temperatures again today. Then if we look at the forecast for Saturday, your high temperatures for Saturday actually getting warmer in some places. It's pretty typical for Northern California to be about a day ahead of Southern California as typically weather moves from west to east. So you can see some of that heat that we're getting up in places like Chico and Sacramento today, that's going to be working its way down into places like Fresno and Bakersfield tomorrow, with your Saturday high temperature forecast for Fresno being 113, Bakersfield 114, but you do notice the coast still moderated by that marine layer. Los Angeles should be another beautiful Saturday for you, 83 and sunny on Saturday. Then if we look at Sunday, you can see that heat continues in San Joaquin Valley, although maybe coming down a couple of degrees, still extreme heat with some dangerous impacts in places like Fresno and Bakersfield. Again, those are the places you're going to definitely want to make sure you're drinking lots of water, staying indoors with some air conditioning, and I think the biggest one is not leaving any pets or children in cars. That's unfortunately something that we see cause a number of deaths every single year, and it's an easy thing to avoid. So if you're in one of those areas where you have this extreme heat, be sure to just take some of these recommended actions. I know that I am, because I'm in one of these areas that is getting the heat throughout the day today. So almost two different forecasts when it comes to Southern California. Coastal forecast should actually be beautiful for you. Farther inland, this is a very rare extreme heat wave, so you do have to take it seriously. You can see in Antelope Valley, they're expecting 105 to 110 throughout the day today. Foothills and mountains, 90 to 100, and valleys, 93 to 103. And then we're going to have to stay tuned to see what happens to these temperatures throughout Saturday and Sunday, because it actually looks like your warmest temperatures are going to be tomorrow. So that's kind of the bad news in your short-term forecast. Now I want to look at some of the unfortunately bad news, but also some good news in our extended forecast ahead. So I always like to end on good news, so we'll just get rid of the bad news first. The bad news is, when I wanted to see if there's any break in the future in the long-range forecast, if we can see any cooler trends coming. So this is the average temperatures that were expected for 6 to 10 days out in the forecast. So are we expecting above average temperatures or below average temperatures? And as you can see, we are expecting above average temperatures throughout Northern California, actually well above average in Northern California, and again above average in Southern California in your 6 to 10 day extended forecast. Then I wanted to see if all this bad news, if it could at least get better 8 to 14 days out, and unfortunately it actually looks like it's going to get even worse. Northern California expected to be well above average, Southern California as well, so it looks like some of this heat that we're getting is here to stay. And just continuing some of this bad news, that does have some negative effects when it comes to the California drought. It dries out the vegetation. With really warm air, you get dry air as well, low relative humidities. That basically sucks the moisture out of the plants. leads to more evaporation and certainly does not help with our drought in California, where you can see majority of the state actually into that extreme drought category, what that red color is, and then where that burgundy color is, we've really seen that extending over the last couple weeks. Now it looks like the entire North Bay and up working into Sacramento Valley in that exceptional drought category, and we're seeing it extend into parts of Southern California as well. So when it comes to the heat that we have right now, what we're expecting 6 to 10 days out, what we're expecting 8 to 14 days out, and the drought that we already have, that is certainly some bad news. And I will just briefly mention wildfire because somebody asked me about this yesterday. As of right now, I would say, first we'll do the bad news. Bad news, when you have all the heat that we have right now and what we're expecting, like I said, that dries out the vegetation, and unfortunately that makes it more likely to have fires start both right now and in the future when the vegetation is drier. Now here's where the good news starts. With this extreme heat that we're having, with the extremely dry air that we're having, we're at least not also having extreme winds. So that's the three things I always look at when it comes to wildfire: temperature, humidity, and winds. If you're checking all three of those boxes, that's where we get some of those massive fires that we've seen in the past. And right now, just looking at the temperatures for this afternoon, you can see that's about as hot as I ever see this map. Places like Sacramento and Fresno getting up to 111, 115. So it's extremely hot. That's one of the wildfire boxes being checked. When it comes to humidity, it's also extremely dry. That's about as dry as you're ever going to see it, into the single digits. I just randomly clicked here and we have a 5% relative humidity. I even get worried when it gets into the low teens. So that's two of the wildfire boxes being checked. But here's where the good news comes in. I know I've just been piling on the bad news, but here's where at least some of the good news comes in. We don't also have the extreme winds, which in my opinion is actually the biggest factor when it comes to wildfire, because it's those big wind events where we end up getting those massive fires like a campfire or a creek fire or some of the other large fires that we had last year. So that's the good news. Looking at the winds throughout the day today, you can see very light winds, 3 to 5 miles per hour sustained. Obviously gusts are going to be a bit higher than that, but that's about as good as our wind forecast could have possibly been to go along with these warm temperatures and dry air. So that's some great news. Basically, to sum up that, I'll say why the heat and dry air makes fires more likely to start. The fact that we have very low winds makes it much harder for those fires to rapidly spread, like some of the big ones we've seen in the past. So that is one little part of good news that we can look at, not seeing those extreme winds. So although it might seem about as bad as it could get, there is some silver lining in the forecast. The other silver lining in the forecast is, while we do have that high pressure system over us right now, Saturday and Sunday, there actually is some hope on the horizon, as towards the start of next week, Monday into Tuesday, especially Tuesday, we're actually going to see this little trough start to work in. You can actually see the effects that has on your temperatures right there, brings in some cooler air, and we can actually see that on the temperature anomaly map as well. So clicking through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you can see Sunday it actually looks like we're 30 to 40 degrees above average temperatures in the Sacramento Valley. But then as we continue to click into when that trough is going to start to come in towards the start of next week, that's where we get back into some below average temperatures. That is a great map to see. That looks like it's going to be in full effect Tuesday and into Wednesday, where large parts of California actually are cooler than the average temperatures for that day. So I'm certainly looking forward to that, because like I said, today is the hottest day of this heat wave for most of California. We're expecting some highs over 110 degrees. So certainly have to take this seriously, although it is good to see there is some hope on the horizon as we start next week. So I think the final thing I'll just leave you with is some of these precautions that you can take throughout the day today. There is a high chance of heat stress for illnesses to people or animals, so drink extra water, avoid outdoor strenuous activities, especially in the warmest parts of the day, and plan to be in air-conditioned buildings. That's certainly what I'm planning on doing today, and hopefully you are planning on making the same precautions as well. So, hope everybody out there stays safe. This is about as bad of a heat wave as I've forecasted for, but good news is there might be some good news on the horizon as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, so we'll just have to hold tight until that happens. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you stay safe out there and have a great weekend as well.